Okay, hi everyone, welcome. So, it's always important to know the time we're in because it sort of gives us perspective where we are in life, what's happening. Last week I didn't do a session with you, and the reason why I didn't because it was a holiday called Shavuot. Shavuot is the holiday when we got the Torah. So this is, I mean, I discussed it a little bit, but we need to understand it because we're doing a little history today. But that was like the seminal moment in the world, because that was the moment the Jews heard the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. Now, as I said to you once before, this revelation is very, very unique. So unique that the Bible, the Torah itself says it never happened before, it never happened again, and no one will ever make this claim. No one is ever going to claim that 3 million people all heard God speaking. It doesn't happen. Why? Because every single religion has the same story. One guy had a vision and he tells the people, he gets enough followers, and then he's got a religion. When I say one person heard God speak, that's irrefutable. You can't say it didn't happen. You don't know. You're not in the person's head. But to go and to make a claim that everyone heard God speak, if they didn't, they would have said, what are you talking about, Moshe? Moses, you're writing the book. We all heard God speak. We didn't. So they had this experience, and it's the seminal moment of reality. I want to explain it to you because it's not just the moment of getting the Ten Commandments. It was a moment of hearing God speak on a national level. That's transformative. They were actually, their souls were leaving their bodies and coming back. It was the moment of the greatest moment in the world because it was the moment where everyone heard God speak. Now, I want to talk about it in our context also. First of all, did everyone in the world know this was happening? And the sages tell us that they did. There was things happening. There were I don't know, earthquakes. There was sounds. There was things going on that people got nervous. What is this? What's happening? It says they had certain leaders. Bilam was a non-Jewish prophet who was a very powerful person. Was he person using sorcery? Was he bad? That's another discussion. But Bilam was a powerful spiritual person. He's called some kind of a prophet, not Jewish prophet, but he was their leader of many people. And they came, they said, what's happening? Whether the world is shaking, what's going on? And he explained to people, now God is giving the Torah to the Jewish people. Now, how the world responded to that, that's a good question. It's a little strange. It's really a verse in Psalms where it says, Hashem, God gives Oz, he gives the strength to the people, which is the Torah, and Hashem should bless the people in peace, which means that somehow the nations of the world, it sounds like they gave Jews a blessing, good, but it also sounds like they were saying good for them. But sometimes when you have something, you say to somebody, whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy, it's kind of like, okay, but you're not really involved in my world. So there was a certain level maybe that you don't have. Here are the people on this chat, this discussion, and the people are searching today, but there was maybe somewhat of an indifference in the world, like, okay, well, if God is speaking to us, don't we all want to hear this? Don't we want to experience this? But that was the seminal moment, and it wasn't just hearing God speak the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments, as I mentioned many times, is not commandments. It's a bad English translation. In Hebrew, it's called dibrot. Dibrot are statements, principles, and all of the Torah comes out from these 10 principles. And when they heard God speaking this, they all understood it. So it wasn't like if I tell you information, you know what I'm telling you, but you don't know more than the words I'm saying. But when God spoke to them and they heard it, their minds were opened up. Like imagine, they say today, I think that science is now debating this point, but it used to be, they always say that people were using 4% of their brain. And we know people don't use a large percentage of their brain, and many people use a lot less. So if you're using 4% of your brain, imagine if you're using 80%. Imagine if you're using 100%. So when God spoke to them, they were lit up. And just to digress a moment, the brain is the organ that nobody understands in science. They don't understand. They can't figure it out. Why not? Because the brain is a medium where which the information comes in from a higher source. You don't have, like, if you dissect the brain, you're not going to find the trillions of pieces of information you have there. There's a spiritual component that uses the brain as the vehicle that we can understand. So if someone's brain is damaged, then there isn't the ability to have the higher understanding on the brain, but the brain is as far as a piece of meat, that is not where your information is. From a higher level. It has to be intact so it could receive. But what happened was in Mount Sinai, they were fully open. They heard everything and they understood. And that's why this is the transformative moment in the world. As we said many times, basically every religion agrees to this. They just say afterwards, well, yeah, but it changed and God changed his mind, and they make all the other stuff up. But the reality is they all agree to this moment. The vast majority of the world understands that, yes, there was a moment where God gave what they call the Bible. They'll agree to that. They say changed or whatever they say. So this is a seminal moment of time. Now, that happened last week. That's what last week was. That's why I wasn't able to be on the session, because we don't use electricity at that time. And so if you would have been here, I would have taught you live, but I couldn't do it from the computer. So that's what happened last week. But now what happens this week? What's the time we're in right now? So I want to explain this because you may have read this in the Torah, and if you did, you were probably very baffled by it. When they heard God speak, it was too much for them. They were not able to maintain that level. If you could imagine a person like, at one moment stretching themselves past what they are, and it's important to do that sometimes, but you can't always maintain that. Even if you're like, doing a job and you're working really hard, you can maybe, work the 15 hours a day for a month, but then at a certain point, you have to go back to normal. So they were way past where they could be. That was their moment. And now they start to come back into normal reality. And Moshe goes up to the mountain to get the tablets. The tablets now will represent the idea of all of this being brought back into the physical world. Okay, the tablets were not just, they were the handiwork of God. And they functioned miraculously because they were not really in this physical world, and they represented already the idea of that moment of connection coming into the world and being part of this world. So bringing down the tablets, the truth is, would have been a transformative moment. So when Moshe goes up to Mount Sinai, he is in this prophetic state, speaking to God, communicating to him every detail of every aspect of the Torah, because there's an infinite amount of details, and he's learning it, and God's transmitting it to him and letting him process, and the whole story how he gets it in the end, and God gives it to him, and then to come down with this information, and Moshe comes down plus with the tablets. The tablets are now going to lock this experience into the world, and ladies and gentlemen, the world would have been different. The world had been transformed, and it would have stayed on that level, on a different spiritual plane than we are today, which, why not? Just because you're used to something, doesn't mean that that's what is necessarily the norm. That's just the world we're used to. But the world would have been transformed to a much, much higher spiritual level. But what happened was, and this you've read in the story of the Torah itself, they counted 40 days for when they thought Moshe went up. He said, I'll be gone for 40 days. 40 days is like when a child is born. 40 days is the formation. 40 days is the idea of a complete unit. And he's been gone for 40 days. And then he would come back down. They miscalculated. They counted the 40 days, it says, from the time that Moshe first went up. And he said 40 full days. days, which means that it had to be from the night till the day. Jewish day starts at night, and so they were off. They were off in their calculation. And if you read the story in the Torah, it says that the mixed multitudes, the Erev Rav, came to Aaron. They said, "Build us a god." And this whole story, and Aaron was trying to push them off and stall them and do all these things. And he saw he had a problem here. He said, "Okay, you know what? Give me your gold." He was trying to stall them, and give me the gold from the ears of your wives. And he figured they weren't going to give it, which they weren't. The women were very, very righteous. They were not willing to do that. But the husbands grabbed it out of the ears themselves. They brought it to Aaron. And the whole story, how this unintentionally, Aaron, when he was trying to stall, there's a whole story here that one of the members of the Erev Rav, one of the members of the mixed multitudes, ended up doing something to create this thing called the golden calf. Moshe comes down from the mountain. Aaron had pushed him off the one day and said, "Come tomorrow morning, we'll do it." And Moshe would come down. But what happened was they got up bright and early. You know how sometimes when you have to get up for something, you sleep late, but then something else, you get up really early. They got up early. Like, okay, today we're getting up. So they got up early, and they go and they built this golden calf. And then Moshe came down and had the tablets, and so has happened, and he broke the tablets. We're in that 40-day period right now. Okay, so last week the Torah was given. We're 1 week in. We got 5 more weeks of this period of time that Moshe was on the mountaintop getting the whole Torah. And then in a few weeks, we're going to get to the day that he broke the tablets, which is a fast day in the Jewish calendar. We fast. It's called the 17th of Tammuz, and it's a very bad day. And the truth is, a lot of bad things happen that day. There are numerous bad things that happened on that day of the 17th of Tammuz when Moshe broke the tablets. Throughout history, a lot of bad things have continually happened on that day. So that was a process. And I want to kind of ask you guys a question, and I'll let you go talk a little bit. One of the things that's really weird about this story is how could this nation who is so great, hearing God speak, how does 40 days later they build a golden calf? That's really strange. Most people, when they read it, they're like, I remember as a kid when I'm read, I was like, I don't get it. How do you explain it? How do you understand it? What does this mean? It's 40 days ago, they hear God speak, and then they want to build a golden calf. Sounds wild. So I want to just tell you a few points about this. Is a very, very big and long topic. I want to give you a few points to think about. First, I don't know if anyone noticed in the Torah itself how many people did the sin of the golden calf. So the text is 3,000 people. How many Jews were there at this time? Well, we know the army-aged males between 20 and 60. There were 603,550 adult males ages 20 to 60. So that means if you count now younger men and older women, you're going to probably get to close to 2 to 3 million people. Somewhat 2 or 3 million people, because you have to count children, women, old men, young men. So about 2 to 3 million people, and we're talking about 3,000 people did this whole sin. That puts it in a very different context. Plus, these 3,000 people, who were they? This is very important for us to know, especially everyone here in the Noachai group, to understand this, because everybody here wants to connect to the truth in the right way. The people that did this were the mixed multitudes. What's happened was when the Jews got to Egypt, there were a lot of Jews there were a small group first that came down. There were a total of 70 people. That's all they were. And they started multiplying. But what was also happening was the Egyptians started looking at these people with this religion, this connection. Again, they didn't have everything, but they had, this information from their forefathers, what it was and who they were and what it was about. And there were a sizable group of Egyptians that wanted to connect to the Jewish people. And Moshe said, okay, come. Question, should he have, shouldn't he have had? They kind of wanted to be involved, but those were the 3,000 people who really did this sin. But unfortunately, the whole nation was judged because they're responsible. If you see somebody, and this is a big question today, like, especially, I think everyone we have to know, Italo is here. Italo, I know, is in Peru, but I think most of the people are in the States. Not sure where loses, but you have a big problem when a society acts in a bad way. Like, we have responsibility to stop it. Ronald's in Australia. And it's very hard to do. We know that. We see a world that's going bananas. How do you stop it? So the Jews were called that they did it, even though it was a small group. So that's the first way I want to explain how they did it, to really just put in context. It wasn't the whole people. It was a small group, and a small group of this mixed multitudes that were really from the Egyptians that were seeping in, their psychology was seeping into the Jewish people. That's the first point. Second point I want to tell you about this, crucial. Every time in life you want to do something big and important, there's always challenges. Always. That's a spiritual rule in the world. Because just like when you go to the gym and you lift weights, there's a point of resistance that you have to get past to grow. Physically, it's the same reality in life. Anything you're used to doing, and now you want to get out of that habit, there's going to be a pushback because you can do something significant now. And that's the way the world is set up. The way the world is set up is that God gave us challenges. Why do you give us challenges for? Not because he needs us to do things, but it's for us. When you're challenged, you get to show your mettle. That's what you do. Because I went through this challenge and that brought out my qualities. And if there's a point of greatness that on an individual or on a global level, there's always going to be a great challenge before. And that's exactly what happened. They were challenged. Again, those are the Kabbalists talk about the mystical things that were happening and the different things that were pressuring them. And all of those things were going on because if they would have waited to Moshe to come down to give the tablets, the world would have been transformed. And they had to be the messenger of that. And it was a hard, hard test. That's the second point I want to tell you about this. Now, there's a third point, and I'm going to open it to discussion. And what I'm saying now, then we'll probably continue with this theme next week. Something else happened when the Jews did this. This is very fascinating. There is a question, really, who they were were very righteous people. You just heard God speak. Should this have happened to them or not? There's a very important idea that happened. And it's a very hard thing to understand, but there was a deeper spiritual rule where they were teaching the world, not consciously, they didn't know this, but they were teaching the world the idea of called tshuva. Tshuva means fixing up what we do wrong. And the world has gone into a different mode. It stayed in the lower reality it is now, but there's a new idea that you need to understand, which is the world was always built like this, but it came out now, which is that you may make mistakes and you will make mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes. But how do you deal with those mistakes? The verse in Proverbs says, a righteous person falls 7 times and gets up. An evil person falls but once. Because you made a mistake. Now you said, oh, I'm bad. I'm no good. Or I just want to keep doing that. Whatever it is that motivates a person to stay down. But if a person makes a mistake and they say, that's not where I want to be, and they realize they can fix it up, that lesson is transformative. And it's a lesson that they unconsciously, the sages say, were on a spiritual level, they were meant to be teaching the world. So the world did not go into the higher level reality it would have if they could have received the tablets. They fell. But when they fell, they also showed us that God wants you to fix up when you fall. And you can fix up when you fall. And you should fix up when you fall. And you should keep getting up and try. And this is a crucial thing because people don't realize this. People kind of think that, like, you know, I have a friend of mine, he's a rabbi, he told me he had he had a friend who was a professor, a Christian professor, and he one time came to a Jewish holiday called Simchat Torah, where the Jews are dancing with the Torah. And my friend's professor, Christian friend, was shaking his head. He didn't understand. He said, what are they so happy about? I read the Torah. It's very hard to do. Well, what are they happy to have? Now, when you have the mindset that, you know, I'll never make a mistake. I can't make a mistake. If I haven't made a mistake, if I make a mistake, I'm damned, this and that, and all the theology that other religions therefore put in, right? We talk about the Christian idea of therefore I'll have grace because you really cannot be that good. Original sin, problems, you can't make it. Right? In Christian theology, I'm not a Christian theologist in any way. I know what I know a little bit, but there is I forgot which book it's in, but it says in one of the Christian books that JC came to free them from the curse of the law. The curse of the law? The law is beautiful. The law is a guideline on how to live your life. You know, there was a rabbi, I might have told you the story. As a rabbi one time in the 40s, he moved to Israel. And what happened was, in those days, it was very poor. So they had an immigration society, and they would give you a few things when you moved to Israel in those days in the 40s. They gave you this hard wooden bed. They gave you a chair. They gave you a table. And a little Bunsen burner. You know, it was like when we go camping, those little burners and a pot. So they gave him this little burner, one old-fashioned burner, and he takes the burner, and on the burner there's like an instruction booklet. And he looks at it and goes, "Oh, this proves the Torah is true." So all the people there are looking at him like, What are you talking about, Rabbi? It's the old rabbi. This proves the Torah is true. What are you talking about? It's a Bunsen burner, Rabbi. He says, okay, it's a Bunsen burner. Tell me now, and what is this booklet that's next to it? He doesn't know what's going on. He's coming in from Europe. He's never seen these things. He doesn't know what it is. It's an instruction booklet, Rabbi. I said, exactly. He says, for this little Bunsen burner, you have a 15-page instruction booklet, how to use it. Do you think you could have a world with a body and a soul and consciousness and emotions and people and needs, and there's no instruction booklet how to use it? Not possible. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So this guy says that, it's to curse the law. So therefore the certain theologies created, this person is going to free them from it, and he's going to atone, and that's not what we want. We don't want a view of a person that they're so bad they can't act properly and someone else has to do it for them. We want the understanding that people can act right. But it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. You will. We all will. It's a verse. It says, "Ein side by art, there's no righteous person. Asher yaseh tov lo yachto." Can't who can? Oh, everyone's gonna make a mistake. There were great, great holy people, but some one split second of something. So you make mistakes, but you fix them up. And that's the other lesson of this story, is that when they came down with when Moshe came down with the 10 Commandments and he broke it. So again, it wasn't a lot of people, small group, but the responsible one for the other. Two, the second idea we said is that it was a great moment, great challenge, and therefore great moments have great challenges. And the last point we said was that they now demonstrated a very key point for the entire world, which was that even a great group of people, if they mess up, you can fix up. And that's what happened. The world didn't go onto the level it would have if Moses would have given the tablets, but it went onto the level of what's called tshuva, that I'm in the world, I'm trying, I'm going to get there because deep down I am good. Not original sin, I'm not bad, I'm good. And I have challenges and I might fall sometimes, but after I fall, then I'm gonna get up, and God wants me to get up, and I can get up, and I can therefore keep the law, because in my essence, I have the ability and the goodness to go and to do what's right. And if I make a mistake, that's called being a human being, and then get up and fix it up. And that's the lesson also that they had to teach the entire